Hello, David Sritsky for the Bond Experience. Welcome back. All right, I am rejoined. It's almost like they never left. By my good friends, Joe Darlington, being James Bond.
Sir.
Welcome back.
Thank you, sir. It's always good to be here.
It's great to have you here. And we've got Kyle Barbeau. Easy smile, beautiful watches.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, my friend.
See you.
Good to see you. And today we have come together because, listen, from time to time we'll talk about fashion, style, brands. We'll talk about the movie and the franchise. Today is all about, 100% about the Bond community. And one of the things we thought we would do in this brand new year is to get a couple of libations. By the way, what are we drinking?
We are drinking Presidente, which came all the way from the Dominican Republic.
We're doing like a license to kill thing today.
Yeah,
exactly. And you're only Presidente for life.
So they say.
This is the tagline. but we're
It's easier to take silver than lead.
we're getting some beers together. We're getting some friends. We're just having a kind of a slow day together, and that's all a part of the camaraderie that we have. But as people that do create content, content creators, as they say, we also consume content. And we thought it'd be an interesting public service message to maybe give you our opinions on what are the things that we love and gravitate to in the Bond community. Who are you out there that creates content that we love to consume? Before we start naming names, and we're going to name names by different channels. Name names. Gentlemen, let's start with the basics. First of all, escapism. I know that I very often will be going to work or maybe even coming from work. I've had a hard day or I'm about to have a hard day. I'll put on a podcast or something. And for just 20 minutes or 10 minutes, whatever long it is, it just draws me out of the stress and the pressure. Why do you consume Bond content?
I would say it's kind of twofold. Bond content for me, first of all, even just the simple acts of, the occasional clip from a film, kind of brings me back to the movie for a second there, reminds me why I enjoy the films so much. So just that kind of revisiting of old friends in a way, there's that aspect of it. But I think one of the other reason is that I love hearing people's insights, and I love hearing, one part is revisiting old friends, but this one is putting a new spin on things that I've already thought about. Meaning, like, somebody's going to put their spin on, the film, why something works, why something doesn't work, get me to think about it differently than I have before. Get me to rethink certain things, and maybe certain films that I give a hard time to. I like.
Have you reevaluated things because of?
100%, sure, 1000%. I mean, I think. Again, I think for the most of the films, I probably have at least, like, if somebody said to me, tell me why people like this one, tell me why people don't like this one, I probably could give a pretty fair evaluation on both camps. And again, that is because of the content that I get from other people.
Yeah.
Again, I might feel one way, but somebody else feels completely differently, and I go, yeah, I can see that.
I like it. And Kyle, as one of the most probably prolific contributors to a lot of the content that you see out there, it'll take too long to name all the channels.
It's a long resume.
You contribute to, including this one.
That's right.
Why do you sit down and watch a video or listen to something?
Well, first of all, I'm a fanatic. This is my hobby. Some people listen to sports talk radio all day. I consume Bond content. It's just where I go when I need that pick-me-up or when I need to relax. I can always have a Bond conversation or listen to other people have a Bond conversation. It's my hobby. I'm interested in it. There's a lot of material there. There's always something to say. So I'm really comfortable listening to and participating in Bond conversations.
Yeah, it's entertaining.
It is.
Yeah.
It is.
I think also it's, to your point, it's what makes the hobby so robust and colorful.
And it's soothing, too. I mean, it is something that we can kind of seek a quantum of solace.
Stop!
If you were.
We're here in front of the Brosnassons here. How dare you misquote? No, it's a great point, and I think it's a nice foundation because that is also the reason why we want to contribute to you a little bit more about what we gravitate to. I think over decades of either creating or consuming some of this content, we've amassed quite a list of different ones. Let's start with podcasts. I mean, we're sitting next to arguably the grandfather, Grandpa Joe. Grandpa Joe.
Now literally.
Yeah, of podcasters.
Really feeling my age today.
Well, you know, one of the first and certainly most prolific if you kind of add everything up. But let's talk about podcasts, and we'll start with you. I mean, is there one, two, several that you tend to gravitate to, and why?
Yeah. I mean, obviously, there's a whole bunch that I do gravitate towards. I think it is interesting when we, like, if a year ago today we were having this very conversation, there could have been a much different group that I was sort of talking about because, again, they do ebb and flow a little bit. One of the ones that's sort of at the top of my mind today is one that's has also been around for a little while. Is the James Bond complex. And I think our friends in Canada, Matt and Edgar, they really shined this year. They really put out some great stuff, and they did a lot of rebranding too.
Yeah.
And
added
really
people,
nice looking stuff.
They added people like Jason and Emery, which I think Emery and Jason add a whole new outlook on things.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, literally they have people everywhere.
Yes.
That's what they do in there.
And they come from different backgrounds, so they have different perspectives on Bond.
That's true.
It makes the conversation richer.
Yeah.
They really have fortified their place, you know, doing what they do, and I think they really hit a home run.
It's a great pod.
I tend to like them the most when they're focusing on James Bond. I do know that they are a podcast that will dovetail into other things, other genres, and everything in between. And so they're staying on brand. And they're staying on Edgar. I love them. They're staying on brand, and they're all really good guys. That's the other thing too. And you're going to see a theme in the ones that I really like is that they put out positivity.
Yes.
You know, there are ones out there that'll just like bang you over the head with negativity.
Yeah.
And it's like just exhausting. It's like, I just came from work. I don't need to hear this.
Right.
But you get on there and they're laughing, they're having fun. You're trying to figure out what, you know, Mathieu's saying because of the French accent.
Yeah.
So it's like a puzzle. Just kidding, Mathieu. Love you, man. But yeah, that's a good one. You like them as well.
I do. Yeah, that's a very good podcast, and they're one of the ones. A lot of the James Bond podcasts that I like are on hiatus right now. They took a little bit of a summer break,
They did.
but now they came back in force, and I
love that.
I really enjoy their content.
What's another podcast that you like?
Lately, I've been listening to What's the Score, which I know both of you gents have appeared on. Frank Wilson does a really good job of interviewing.
Silky voices. Of
He
Frank
has
Wilson.
one of the best voices.
Best voice.
He belongs on NPR because he has the perfect radio voice. He does a very good job of interviewing his guests and talking to them about what draws them to film and film music, and delves into like the nostalgia that film music instills in people. It's a really good podcast. So they're not on hiatus right now. That's one of the reasons why I've been listening to it quite a bit lately.
Isn't it amazing? I mean, you know, lesson to us all that consistency sometimes drives our appreciation.
Sure.
I mean, I know the ones that have been unflailing as far as like getting things out, even if it takes a month in between, I tend to stick with. Spy Hard is the one I want to name. And I don't know if you guys listen to that or not, but it's an extremely professional group, that two gentlemen that actually focus on the entire spy genre. So it's not just James Bond, but they do James Bond. They get they get amazing guests on. They get like big stars, cinematographers, directors of movies, Martin Campbell, those type of levels of players. So to hear them talk about the entire spy genre, and then they have this thing called the knock list, where if something is that good that you should absolutely see it, it makes the knock list.
Okay.
And they have people
Don't let it get
vote
out
in
in the open.
Exactly. So that's the one I wanted to put out there. But give us another podcast.
I think another one that again we've talked about in the past and we've become good friends with them is Blunt Instruments, and I think they have really again another bunch of guys who not only become increasingly consistent, but Luke has also gotten much more.
Prolific.
Thank you.
Thesaurus.
I'm on my first beer, but he's been doing videos that have also been home runs. I mean, he's really become a force to be reckoned with as well.
Yeah, Blunt Instrument, I appreciate what they do because they stay on brand. They are the ones where, some podcasts will dance around things or, weave in and out. They're just straight on. They've had some very specific, focused, targeted, laser-oriented conversations. They're not afraid to stray away from that. I think the chemistry is good in between the two as well.
It is. And I think, I'm very, very biased because I'm close friends with both of the hosts, and I've been a guest, I think, 3 times now on Blunt Instruments. So for me to list that as one of my recommendations would be kind of self-serving. However, it is a great podcast, and every time they put out new content, I look forward to it. Whether it's discussing Bond, fashion, they're going into both wedding preparations. They both got married this year, bringing in their wives as contributors for an episode. All their content is great.
Yeah, they're really good.
And me too.
They have a couple laps of judgment of how to get on their show. But
when they're really scraping the bottom of the barrel and they don't know what to talk about, they call me.
There is a podcast that I really enjoy that is very relaxing. It's not always about Bond. In fact, it's infrequently about Bond. But I'm going to mention it because he's a Bond content creator, and that is Albion Never Dies.
Great choice.
Thomas Crichton is absolutely amazing. He's got this like silky, British, very proper voice. His content is things like, let me explain to you what this means that we have a new prime minister. Let me tell you what happened in Parliament. Let me tell you what Christmas means to people in UK. It's very UK based. So for us that are, sort of that Anglophiles, if you will, that I would consider all of us, it really does give us a peek into the culture from somebody that lives it. Have you heard it as well?
I listened to it on the way down today.
Yeah.
It's a great podcast. It's another one where I really look forward to Thomas's new episodes because I'm a big history guy and I'm a huge Anglophile. Yeah. So learning about British history and current events in the UK, very interesting to me. I like that podcast a lot.
Have you heard it?
Oh yeah. Yeah, he does really great stuff.
It's good, right?
Yeah.
All right, Joe, name us another podcast, Mr. Podcast.
I tell you, I think the one that I feel like I'm pulling out. I wish that I was a little more throwing out newer podcasts. Some of the
ones that still exist.
Yeah. In other words. But I also one of the ones I sort of keep going back to is Quantum of History.
Mm-hmm. Oh no, I had that down too.
Yeah, and for the reasons that you were sort of saying, again, I love the ones that are. See, one of the things I always love about James Bond, and it doesn't always play out in all of the films, is I want to say that feeling of espionage, even if it's just tapping on world events or the way the events in the world are playing out. Quantum of History does that. I mean, he's always connecting the real life, the plots of James Bond to the real life events that surround it, and I always think ooh, that's good stuff. To pull it in to that real world espionage, really great stuff.
Donnie Waldron does such a great job. You can hear the amount of prep that he puts into this and the way he connects. I think he's a great interviewer. My whole thing with Donnie is he's become so busy. He's in a new vocation and a new focus right now. He's got a very young family. He's focusing on all the right things. Yeah. It doesn't help me in my entertainment. I want more. I want more from you, Donnie. Yeah. I want more from Quantum of History.
I sympathize with where he is.
Right, exactly. Life finds a way, as they say. But fan of Quantum of History?
Big fan. Yeah, that's one, again, being a huge history guy. There's so much 20th century history covered by the James Bond films. We kind of forget about the Cold War, détente, the space race, and it's all here. It's in all of these, the rise of mass media and the internet. It's all been covered by Bond, so it's good to take a deep dive into what those things mean.
Yeah, I'll throw one out that chances are maybe you haven't heard of, or maybe you have, but maybe you haven't heard of, and that is Selling Secrets with Josh Gay. And this is an Australian gentleman who talks about the marketing of James Bond. So talk about like brands and approaches and all these things. And the guests that he has and the conversations are very intriguing. He had Kim Sherwood, the most recent author for James Bond. I think one of the unique things that he does in Selling Secrets is he gets behind the doors. Like we talk about, hey, look at that ad that just came out from Globetrotter, and he'll get behind the scenes and say, here's why they took this approach, and here's why they're connecting with Bollinger. So for those of you that love that kind of behind the scenes, almost like Wizard of Oz type, pull the drape across, that's a great one to listen to.
That's right up your alley, too.
It's so much out my alley, yeah. What's another one that you enjoy?
It's funny that you word it that way. Another James Bond podcast with Corey and Danielle up in Canada. I like that one because it's a couple discovering a lot of Bond for the first time. Most of the Bond podcasts are put out by fans like us who have read every book multiple times, seen every film 10, 20, 30 times each. Corey and Danielle are learning Bond in real time. They're kind of discovering this as we go. So you get to see like a fresh perspective on each film and each bit of Bond media.
I really like them, and I listen to them religiously, and I've heard every one. My biggest thing with them is sort of where you were sort of hedging your bets, is they haven't had something in a long time.
It's been a while.
Yeah. And I don't know if they've gone dark, they've taken a hiatus, or they're just like, thank you, we're done. And by the way, that's totally fine if you are. We still love you and what you've created. I mean, there's 25 Bond films. If there wasn't any more, God forbid, we'd still watch the other 25. Poo, the evil eye.
Yes.
But yeah, it's something where that's probably a theme we could talk about with a lot of our old favorites.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, we used to obviously loved Chris Wright and Tom.
Oh, yeah.
James Bond Radio.
James Bond Radio.
That is one of the best.
Like
ever.
when that came out, I'd be like, work, emergency, you're going to have to wait.
I would look forward to getting stuck in traffic when there's a new episode of James Bond Radio.
Exactly. And to me, I mean, and I'll put you out there. I mean, Being James Bond, when Being James Bond came out with something, there were certain ones that is almost like, must-see TV.
Yes.
It's must-hear podcast.
And then you savor it.
You do.
You look forward to it, and you carve out time to, like, this is going to be my JBR time, or this is going to be my Being James Bond time.
That's a great point.
I'm going to start cooking and just lose myself in a Bond podcast.
What a great point out, because, and I'm not going to say which ones, but there are podcasts that I will listen to while working out or doing some chores, which I can keep kind of one ear on. There are others that I will just sit down and just concentrate. And that's the difference between good and great.
Yeah. I do think you're bringing up a great point, because the fact that there are so many podcasts right now that have taken a break, and again, hopefully temporary, but that does leave a window open for new content creators.
Yes.
If you're thinking about, I would like to try my hand at a podcast. I have a couple ideas I'd like to get out there. It's not a bad time to throw your hat into the ring and see what you can do.
Says the grandfather of James Bond podcast.
Absolutely.
But that's a really great mentorship moment, because we're in a brand new year where we've talked about before that there's going to be this black hole of any kind of information. You can create the information.
Absolutely.
If you stay consistent with it. I'm going to throw out another one. If you haven't seen them, you've maybe heard them, and that is Dress to Kill. So Alana and Elma, and they most obviously talk about James Bond. They talk about Bond girls, but they also talk about James Bond style.
Yeah.
And they are fun. They giggle. They laugh. What I love about them is they're probably not going to like that I'm saying this. They remind me of the Roger Moore era, where you could still have fun and laugh at yourself, and nobody was offended, and they just get on there and they talk about life. And they're just a fun group of ladies who appreciate James Bond. And there is no, I'm just going to it's the Presidente. There is no agenda. There's no, I need to make sure you all hear this. It's just they're going out there and they're going to say, the lapels on that thing are just crazy. You could hang glide from that. It's a fun, relaxing podcast. It's not this overwhelming thing where they're beating you over a head.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like it too.
I have not heard them enough yet. I will definitely take that recommendation. I will definitely give them a listen. And I do hear what you're saying. And again, I think a lot of content creators or potential content creators they think they need to come up with a serious product to deliver, and they feel like if they're not delivering a serious minded show, that they're failing. But no, you can just sort of have fun with these things, have really good conversations, and that's your content. You know?
I wouldn't have a channel
Yeah, there you go.
if I came up with anything serious. No political, no religious, nothing. Nothing about the C word, nothing. Much to Joe's chagrin. Too soon.
Careless.
What about you? Have you listened to them before?
I have, yeah. That is a really good podcast because the two co-hosts have such good rapport.
They do.
Listening to the two of
They're
them
best friends.
have a conversation, it feels like you're just listening to a conversation between two close friends.
I'm going to say this as a compliment, but of course, I don't know how to say things, so it's not going to come across. But it's almost like a female version of you and me.
Exactly.
Like when we talk
Yes.
about style
It
and
is a
stuff
lot
like that, the
yeah.
yucks and stuff that they have.
Yep.
That's what it reminds me of. Gentlemen, were there any other
But better. They're better.
Much better, much better. And better in every way. Is there any other podcast that you wanted to put out there before we move on to the next channel?
Sure. I'm a big fan of the Bond Brain. Bud West covers a lot of topics like poker, chess, some of the more cerebral activities that Bond gets into. Mountain climbing was a recent episode. Curling was a recent episode. Bud he's a friend, but he's also a very good game player. He loves games and challenging his brain that way, and then kind of invites his audience into expanding their minds through playing games.
Love it.
It's amazing how when we talk about all these guys, a lot of them, they really do have great voices for podcasts.
They do.
Bud absolutely does. I mean, a few of them, I've been on their shows and I listen to it back, and I've had people tell me, you have a really good voice. You should be doing voiceovers or something or other. I hear myself talking to some of these other guys. I sound like a high schooler next to them. They're really good stuff.
They do have great voices. Some of those you could just listen to just to relax, and some of them to get really good information. But
You have a podcast occasionally that I do enjoy very much.
Oh,
So
wow.
it's more geared towards your fitness journey than it is than it is the more James Bond or style content. If you want to follow the fitness journey, the Bond Experience podcast is the way to go.
I'll have to pay like restitution everywhere for that. So that's no good. All right, let's do something. A couple of years ago, we would have never even moved to this channel as far as content other than visual, like images. But we have to move to Instagram because people are not just posting pictures and a little hashtag on Instagram. They're using it as a forum to tell a story. Yeah. Joe, what about you? Instagram. Who do you gravitate to?
Well, I love what you said before about how, it's always, sometimes when there's like a big announcement, like if, for example, the new logo for the new film comes out, it just kills Instagram for like a day or two because you're just scrolling up and down and everybody's posting. It's like, I know I've seen it.
Yes.
And nobody cannot post it. So, it's, there
Take
we go.
a selfie in front of it.
Right, something.
Make
Yeah.
it you.
Yeah. And I do gravitate towards, like you said, I mean, there's a lot of people who just kind of post pictures from Bond movies, and that's fine, but it's usually the ones that personalize it a little bit. We talked about him already, but his Instagram, Fleming Never Dies.
Yep.
Love it, because he's kind of gotten into the thing where he's taking photos.
The two
and
shots.
Yes, exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of fun stuff. I mean, he does really good stuff.
Yeah, I like him as well. What about Instagram for you?
Self-serving, because we are good friends, but my friend Connor Bentley, Conmon007,
Yep.
does the same kind of thing where he will take photos of some thrifting outfits that he's found to recreate James Bond looks and put pictures of himself over pictures of Daniel Craig wearing a similar or the same outfit, which is pretty neat.
Yeah, and let's stay on that target for a moment. Stay on target.
Stay on target.
And that is to say, Connor and you have an interesting, and I love it. It's actually very relaxing. It sometimes can go for a very long time. The Persuaders.
Yes.
But you have just deep conversations between the two of you, sometimes about nothing.
Usually we will pick a topic. Christmas just passed, so we did a Christmas episode. We did a Thanksgiving. that's just a jumping off point, and then the conversations can veer in wild directions. Our Christmas episode, we spent a good 40 minutes discussing how terrible Kevin McAllister's parents are, and we just went on this Home Alone tangent for well over half an hour, deep dive into Home Alone.
Oh my gosh.
Completely devoid of any sort of Bond content, but yeah, it's just a fun little thing to do.
I love fun moments. You mentioned Thomas with the suits and things like that, and the outfits. I actually put down on Instagram, and I think he's the most powerful on Instagram than the other channels he's on. He's on a lot of them, and that is Matt Spazer's Bond suits.
Sure. Yeah.
So he gets into forensic specific detail to the point where I think most people, when they buy something that's formal or suiting, will absolutely either go to his website or they'll go to his Instagram and do some sort of connection or lookup. But again, the way he's taken recent photos in 2022, I know he's hired some professional photographers. Just everything is so crisp and beautiful. And he uses himself, he puts himself out there, which I always like to see when people put their personality.
Me too.
So yeah, Bond suits for the win.
I love his website too. I've been reading his website since he launched, and just look forward to every Monday catching the new article.
I know. What about more Instagram? What else do you follow?
I follow. I gotta think of another one.
I've got a good one that I know you follow.
Please,
Because I put it down on
Save
my list.
me.
So British Bond fan. British
Oh
Bond
yeah,
addict.
British Bond addict.
British Bond addict, Chris, who I think together, even with Melanie Burb, they just have like this fun repertoire. They have a connection, but he is in particular really fun with his images and what he does.
Well, he's
you
got
agree?
an infectious sense of humor.
You have to play trivia with them one night, and
Is that right?
we do these every once in a while. We do these little Zoom trivias that are just awesome. They will not miss an opportunity to dress in some kind of costume. And it's
Oh
just
my
so
gosh,
much
that's
fun.
great.
What a great.
That's what I mean. I get a feeling from his Instagram like he's just having fun, and I don't want to. This is terrible to say, but Instagram to me is dopamine.
Yes.
It's like I don't want to overthink. I don't want to read a dissertation or anything philosophical. I want to have fun.
Yeah.
I agree. I like seeing the humor. We look to Bond content in general, but Instagram in particular, to have a little escape.
Yes.
And if you start to take it too seriously, it's no fun.
Yeah.
100%.
Speaking of dopamine push, there are a couple Instagram accounts that are to me like sex, in the sense that it's
Well, yeah, there are actually
it's
quite
short.
a few of those.
It's short but impactful. Though I don't mean the ones like cheesecake. I'm talking about they're beautiful to look at. They're impactful, but it's a short moment as well. I'm deprecating myself. Omega Bond watches, and I know that's Lorenzo. We talked about him, Blend Instrument, but his production value, he always has the wristwatch, the wrist rolls. What I also like is, we don't talk about this a lot, stories. So he shares a lot of James Bond wrist journeys and stories from other creators from all over the globe. So it's almost like this international, cornucopia of different people's watches for the day.
And he's been very good at incorporating other people into that journey. His personal friends, his wife, they're all part of his story and his journey. And let's say he's spread the goodness of Bond to a wider audience, which is really what we're all trying to do.
100%. I think, I don't know if you've noticed also lately, Commando Bond, Caleb, his photos have just, again, jumped like 2 levels. He went out, he got his friend who's a professional photographer. His is all around arms and armory and kit and things like that. So that's another one that I think is this great dopamine quick push.
Yes. And Instagram is his best medium. He does
think
really,
so.
really well there.
Some people they will do better on Instagram than anything else. I think Billy's Bond art, any of the artists that you know, Ruben Wakeman.
I've got one I wanted to throw in for that one.
Go.
Jeff Chapman. He got on my radar because he was doing these artworks about. He was doing all the Bond book titles, and it was girls with
Yes.
And he's kind of moved on to a lot of other things, but I've been mesmerized by his channel ever since. It's Jeff AR, Jeff ACH _R, I think is his Instagram. But he not only does he do he does these magnificent pieces of art, then he'll do a video about how he put it together, and I'm
wow.
just mesmerized by these, about how all the different elements, things that you wouldn't even think would work,
Oh,
but
I'll
he
sign
just
up for
knows this medium so well. You'll watch how he builds this piece of art,
Yeah.
and how it all. I mean, it's just really fun to watch.
You know who does that very well? Besides Billy's Bond art,
Mm.
he'll show like different step by step. Sean Longmore.
Yes.
Sean Longmore will talk about the inspiration of how he
Yeah.
puts the posters together.
Yes.
I think some of the best artists, they show some of the inspiration, the passion, and the magic behind it,
Yeah.
and it just lets you into their world.
Was it Nightfire, the most recent one he did with Brosnan,
Yes.
with the
Yes.
space
Yes.
suit
Oh
and the
my
two
gosh.
girls? That was just great. What a home run
the
that
Christmas Jones one that comes back every
Yes.
year. Just
was. Just great.
chef kiss.
Oh, right.
Chef
Totally.
kiss. What other Instagram ones stand out? I've got a couple more, but
The culture of Bond. I'm a big food and drink guy,
Yep.
but I've got nothing on Mike. He is quite a chef.
Yes.
He's a real epicure. So watching his Bond journey, primarily skewed towards food and drink, which I really appreciate, is a lot of fun.
you know what I love about Michael's Instagram is that nothing is staged. Like the influencers, and people love that word. I know you do. The influencers that people hate when they go out to restaurants, they go, "Nobody eat. I've got to stage my food before
Right,
you touch
right,
it."
right.
He is the opposite. He's like, "I'm just naturally living this life. Oh, by the way, here's a picture."
Exactly.
Like he's the polar opposite, and I love that. And sometimes he'll take a picture of a beautiful plate of food with like 6 bites out of it,
Right.
with like crumbs in the corner, and I'm like, dude. And I'm thinking like, no, that's real.
We appreciate the authenticity. The
Yes.
authenticity comes
Absolutely.
You know who else I think is very authentic, and we love him for that because he is he's going to hate this. He's the giant teddy bear of the Bond community, and that is James Bond Classified, Jay Sadowski. Who's the sweetest, nicest guy, who's married to the nicest, sweetest woman in the world. And he especially, though, he's got his trivia. He's capital C for consistency.
Yes.
Yeah.
And he's just, I don't know, there's something about his channel that's like gooey candy.
Well, he's the nicest guy in the Bond community, let's face it. I mean, he's just the kind of person that you want to be around because his positive energy is infectious.
Absolutely.
I agree. So the only other thing that I'll say about Instagram is, to me, Instagram feels like the field that, to your point about podcasts, is the most open to people absolutely jumping in and out.
Yeah.
Like you could jump in, you could post pictures, you could have fun, you could play with it. Podcasts, you've got to post, you've got to create a foundation. YouTube is a whole different level of complexity. Yeah. But I think with Instagram, you could tomorrow become a sensation.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
100%.
But be authentic.
But be authentic.
Yeah.
Be true to yourself. A lot more fun. All right, gentlemen, we got to move to YouTube, the most complex, highly produced in some cases channel. And we've got a lot in here, but Kyle, I'll let you go first.
I watched this one guy in Pennsylvania.
No.
He's fine.
Don't mention it.
But I think besides that guy, Calvin Dyson, is there a better Bond YouTuber than Calvin Dyson? Going on, 10 years now?
Every Sunday, like clockwork.
One of the happiest, most positive people. He's funny. He's very well spoken. His insights are very real and well thought out. I look forward to his videos. I really do.
I'll second that. Funny, thought-provoking. He's doing something similar to you where, by his own admission, he's kind of, sometimes he'll just not have a new idea. So he'll go back and he's reviewing himself, which is absolutely hilarious. And you think like, oh, come on, are you really? This is like when they would go back and do different strokes and they would go back to the old episodes.
It's Inception. It's a dream within the
It's a dream within the dream, but he makes it work. He's so funny, but he's highly technical too in what he does. And he's consistent. Like I said, every Sunday without fail, he's got a new video.
The James Bond delicatessen, that might be the all-time greatest.
That was great. That was amazing.
As I was thinking about who I wanted to talk to about YouTube, obviously he was the first one that came to mind, and it was almost to the point where it was like, is it too obvious just to jump right in and start talking about Calvin? Because again, he's so. I mean, you talk about somebody. What's amazing to me about him is that he started out reviewing all the films. I was watching him since he was my weekly Bond.
Right.
But he's a guy who, once you've done all that, a lot of guys would sort of go like, well, now what do I do? I'm stuck. He has not. He really found, like, he's hitting a new high, frankly. He's been wildly consistent. The things that he's come up with have been really original. And yeah, he does not, he continues to be wildly insightful. You know, you just love his insights on all the films.
Yeah. And again, I think a part of it is I know he has a very creative job at a very creative company, and yet he is the type of person that says, I need to flex my creative muscles. Yeah. And we're all the benefactors of that, which is great.
Very much.
I'll throw another one in there, and we're staying, big guns, ablazing. Dutch Bond fan.
That was my next one too, yeah.
Yeah, Dutch Bond fan. He is, again, super consistent. I love that he is not afraid to go off into different directions. So he's doing his things with Lilith, his I was going to say betrothed. That's way too assumptive. Put a ring on that thing. Put a ring on that thing. But his significant other, girlfriend. But he also does things that are very thought-provoking. He is almost, to me, the equivalent of Blunt Instrument, but on YouTube, because he will go into very controversial subjects, and he won't dance around them. Like, I love that authentic moment.
But he also has a really good sense of humor. If you watch some of the videos where he's introducing his girlfriend to Bond, or one of my personal favorites, you're a James Bond fan when, because we've all lived those moments that he lists. It's really, really funny. Check it out.
He does. I do love that he's brought the girlfriend into, kind of. We were talking earlier about another Bond podcast. Corey and Danielle, and how it's fun to bring sort of a layperson into the world of Bond to get some fresh reactions. He's been doing that with her, and it's been great. It's been a lot of fun watching them do that. He's also been doing a lot of things with Haphazard stuff.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
Yes. I mean, Haphazard is. I mean, he's a guy who's been around. Another guy. I was thrilled when you found him, basically, and said, I found out who that is, and we've been talking. I've been watching his stuff since way back when.
Me too.
Even some of his non-Bond stuff, which he does some of the old, really campy movies that it's like, how does anybody know that movie?
Yeah.
Return of Captain Invincible. Check that one out.
Super Fuzz. Oh, that's a classic. I've always been a big fan of his. So to see the two of them sort of come together.
That's magical. When you could take some of your favorite YouTubers and you put them together, it's almost like this Marvel mashup.
Yeah, totally.
This MCU type thing where you're like, they got all the Avengers together. It's like it's so magical. I'll throw one out that's not an obvious one, since we're kind of doing big guns, but I'll throw an up and comer or two in there. The Bond Report. Okay. So the Bond Report is a gentleman, and he gravitates to the Spectre side of things. He'll almost take like a dark look at things, but in a very playful way. But he goes over consumables, consumer goods, toys. He does reviews. He has discussions. It's just that his production value is high, but he's got this larger than life personality. Do you know? Have you watched
I do, yes. He definitely has. He's the guy who watches the Bond movies and roots for the villain to win.
Correct. Correct. Yes, exactly.
Those meddling kids, that meddling James Bond.
Spectre will get them next time. It's like, but he's not doing it. He's not doing it in a deranged way.
No, not at all.
He's having fun with it.
It makes it a lot of fun.
Yeah. Have you seen him yet?
I have not. No.
Good. By the way, this is the magic of this video. It's if we were going down all the ones where you're like, I like them too. Yeah, I like them too. This would be okay. But if you can find someone like the Bond Report that you haven't, and just watch one or two of their videos, I think it's a win. I really do.
I think before, not quite a YouTuber, but I feel like I'd be really remiss if I didn't mention the Bond Theory, who primarily on Facebook, Jesus and our friend Lorenzo.
Oh, okay.
He was on my list also.
Yeah.
Definitely worth mentioning the Bond Theory. You should definitely check them out on Facebook.
Yeah. And Jesus, I know that he kind of sees you as a mentor, right?
A little bit, I would say.
Yeah, it's kind of nice. Yeah, it's kind of nice. And Lorenzo's a very, very nice guy.
They're very supportive of the channel, so I feel like I should definitely want to
absolutely
give them a little shout
out. And what is the Bond Theory? What are they all about? What's their page all about?
Mainly talking about the films, like we do.
Nice.
Dissecting and reviewing.
Who doesn't like dissecting?
Absolutely.
Like a frog.
The frog, that's who.
Stupid heartbeat.
But being a big Pierce Brosnan fan.
Yeah.
Oh.
I appreciate
Lorenzo's
their
huge.
look on, or their take on Bond.
Lorenzo is a gigantic "The World Is Not Enough" fan.
And
Yes.
When I was doing my top 25,
I am
he said,
too.
I hope that's high up. And
Yeah.
I said, I think you'll be happy.
And see, I love when people have fun like that. And I have to mention one that is only about fun. Educational, question mark, but fun all the time. And that is From Tailors with Love.
Yes.
Pete
Yeah,
Brooker.
yeah.
And whether he's talking to costume designers, which it's amazing, he gets like top shelf people on his channel, or he's looking at a location, dragging his significant other around. It is so damn funny. He is just a naturally funny guy.
Yes.
I love that channel.
he is one of the funniest people in this community.
Absolutely.
Every
Yeah.
time I talk to him, I have a good time. And like you said, he's getting really big interviews, whether they're costume designers or performers or people involved in these films. It's really fun to listen.
I told you guys this story not too long ago, but I'll share it. I won't get into too much detail. But I had asked Pete to send me a little contribution video for something I was working on, and the thing he sent me back, I couldn't actually use it in good conscience, but he had me buckled over my kitchen counter laughing. I'm talking, couldn't catch my breath laughing so hard.
I think it was a video of somebody that didn't have too much clothes on dancing.
Yes, dancing around.
Yeah, gyrating.
But and the context of that happening though was so. I mean, again, he
Random.
had me hysterical.
He is just naturally funny.
Yeah.
Naturally.
The last few weeks, he's been doing a lot of YouTube lives with Matt Spacer, with Ken from Motionsographer. One of them has me. 'Cause again, that's when he couldn't get a big, high-profile Jenny to me
Slumming
type
it.
guest,
Yeah.
last-minute fill-in replacement. But those are a lot of fun too,
They are
because
fun.
those are strictly Bond, and he and his guests and co-hosts will talk whatever the news roundup of Bond is, whether it's the 60th anniversary Omega piece or the N. Peel collection or something like that. Really dissect it, analyze it, review it,
I like that.
discuss.
One of the, keeping on the same sort of theme of that, one that I wanted to highlight was views from Mark. So Mark, and what's great about this is a lot of people, you and I have even talked about this, Kyle, a lot of people will say, well, I'd love to talk about the brands and style and clothing, but Zaretsky's got that, or Matt Spacer's got that. But I think everybody can take their own approach, their own spin. So what he does is he takes his own approach. He lives in London. He takes his own approach on things. He happens to be in a wheelchair. And what he talks about is the not disablement of that, but the capability of that, and what he can do with striking fashion and connecting. And he has regular videos, coffee talks on Instagram.
Those are great.
And it's this consistency of seeing him and connecting, and then of course meeting with him. He's maybe neck and neck with Jay Sadowski as far as one of the nicest guys too. It's just awesome.
I think
Great
to
content.
sort of jump off what you were just saying too. It's when you were Kyle mentioned before that a lot of times on your podcast you're talking about the fitness and that kind of thing. The beauty of so many of these different content creators is that they're all sort of going at Bond through their own lens.
Yes.
And that lens is never the same as anybody else's. Right. So everyone always has a unique perspective on these things. And that's what makes them so much fun and so much fun to consume.
It's true.
I agree. And that's I think when somebody's authentic to that as opposed to replicating or macking on somebody else, that's when you connect with others.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, there's some times where people, their content is so true and beautiful and engaging, you're compelled to watch it, like Benjamin Lin, the Bond Bulletin. I mean, the stuff that he puts together, he put together 60th anniversary, he put together a documentary, he put together his moments that you don't expect, and they're all beautiful, engaging, lovely.
Benjamin Lin is, he has, for me, probably the do not miss content. I always feel like anytime I see something his pop up, do not miss that. I always watch it.
The Bond Bulletin.
He is
Do you watch it?
I do. And once again, it goes back to what we were saying before about Instagram. When people put their own personalities into it and it becomes authentic, that's when it's really fun to watch.
Yeah.
Anybody can talk about their own ranking of the Bond films, or they can talk about the latest publicity shots. But without that perspective of the individual, it's no different than what we're getting from the official channels. I want to see Benjamin Lind. Not more of the official release. I want to see Benjamin's take on it.
Yeah, you're right though. It's the take, because one of the things that I highlighted on here was Bond's apartment. We already talked about Luke Taggart with Blunt Instrument, but he has a YouTube channel called Bond's Apartment, and anybody could say, oh, it's another person doing review of style and items, but what people don't know is that he takes it from a different point of view, because he doesn't always buy the screen accurate pieces.
Right.
He'll buy a different color or a different shoe or from the same brand or brands that he wishes it would be. So he took his own spin on things, and because of that, he's, I know, increasing in popularity because he's being authentic to himself.
Right.
He's not trying to be the next, Pete Brooker, for example.
Yeah,
It's true.
I think now that you got me thinking about fashion and people's personal spins, one that I would love to give a shout out to is Bond 00XL.
Yes.
Oh, yes.
Came out this
Without a
year.
doubt.
I think this year, and again, I loved his personal journey. Sort of putting his personal mark on his, how he looks at fashion. And for a couple of guys who, sometimes need little difficult squeezing into sweaters, it was a nice, refreshing, change of pace.
He did a great job.
He did, yeah.
And it's interesting, too, because this is the challenge I think anybody who creates content has, is great, I just released something, now what? And it is this wonderful yet horrible feeling. Anybody who's created content knows it, of you've just released something, people are like, comment, and you're like, oh, what's next Tuesday? And he, in particular, had a very difficult issue. He had some family, he had some situations crop up, but he even says his first one was like Casino Royale. It was so good, and then people gravitated.
Yes.
He's like, you'll appreciate this. He goes, I don't want my next one to be Quantum of Solace. And he did his next one, and he's like, crap, I hope it's, and it was good. It was very good. But now he's got another one. Will it be Skyfall? It's like, it's the hard part about what's next.
Yeah. It's sort of like where stage fright and writer's block come together. We all, I think we've all kind of been there. Where you intimidate yourself. Sometimes like you do something, you put all your heart and soul into it, and again, now that I've raised the bar this high, how do I follow that? But again, you just do. Sometimes it's like playing jazz. Sometimes you just start putting something out there and it comes together eventually. You start to see where it goes, and it works. Again, they're not all going to be like grand slams.
No,
but a lot of ground rule doubles really work.
Well, your first few will be rough. There'll be a learning curve before you really hit your stride.
Take Calvin looking at his old videos.
I was going to say, you could go back and do a retrofit of them. But I mean, all right, I had on my list being James Bond as one of my favorite still YouTube channels, and not because you're sitting here, but it is very good. But you must feel that pressure of, you just released, again, a very popular video. I'm sure it's going to continue to be popular. But it's like now people are like, oh, great, Joe's back, whether you say it or not.
Yeah.
It's almost like crap. What's the next thing?
Right. Yeah. No. The thing I was just talking about stage fright, writer's block. I do get that. So, I mean, I had, honestly, like about a week or so ago, or however far back, we were talking about there was some discussion about the new possible Bond actor, which I really don't do a lot of commentary on, but I did have an idea of, but I could sort of catapult off the Daniel Craig era, where we go from there, and things like that. But then I say to myself, but again, after doing like this gigantic, no holds barred, all 25 films, and then 5 minutes of me just talking, like right. So you do kind of get you intimidate yourself sometimes.
But the reality is that everybody would love 5 to 7 minutes of you just talking. It's in the prison's in here. It's like it's on us, because it's true. When I not too long ago, I came back out with a Frugal Bond video, which I hadn't had one in years, and it went gangbusters. Even the one that you and I did on the best outfits for each actor. And it's like afterwards, if I had thought about too much, like, how do I follow that? As opposed to, no, here's an individual moment, it's going to be small. So I've got ones that are like huge, and then ones that are really small, ones that are huge. And it's like, that's the gas pedal effect of content.
Yeah, and no one has ever been criticized for too much content.
Right.
You know, they always, it's always, you need more.
Where have you
More.
been?
Exactly. Right. We need more content. No one ever says too much.
You know what I like also the YouTube channels where I talked about concentration with the podcast, like paying attention of the ones that are literally background in your life. So cue the music show. They have, and a lot of people are like, well, hold on a second, David, isn't that the band? Like, don't you have to go someplace? Not a lot of people know they have a YouTube channel, and the YouTube channel has a ton of their music that you could just put on and just listen to in your life.
And they're releasing more and more every day.
Yes.
They're always putting out alternate takes and different performances, different live versions of all of the Bond songs.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they put out quality stuff.
Yes.
They really, really do. I mean, not only is it doesn't even need to be said that the music is top notch. It is fantastic stuff. But the way they film things, the way they do the audio, it is all extremely professional. So you'll never get, it's not an amateur act at all.
Right.
So you really are getting top quality stuff.
Quite frankly, there are some songs that Cue the Music does better
Yes.
than the official releases.
Big time.
There are a lot that
They're very humble about
I
that.
prefer
Yes.
their version.
Like which ones?
Writings on the Wall, Another Way to Die.
Yeah.
Both of them come Die Another Day.
Dirty Love.
Dirty Love.
Yeah.
There are quite a few. I love.
Actually, I think they're No Time to Die, too.
Their No Time to Die is terrific. I love their rendition of Bond 77.
Oh,
I think it's
yeah.
great.
Yes.
Yep, absolutely. And again, their range is absolutely incredible. People probably heard me say many times. I've seen them do On Her Majesty's Secret Service, the classic soundtrack from 1969, and in the next breath do the Propeller Heads version. How they do this, I do not know. I literally don't understand how a band can do both of those with the limited. I mean, unless you had a band that was gigantic. I've seen them do it with very limited resource, and it's just absolutely incredible.
Well, they're on a small hiatus right now. Hopefully,
They are.
Be
They are. But I've
resuscitated
heard
soon.
glimmers of hope.
Just a glimmer?
Just a glimmer.
Just a glimmer.
Not even a glimmer.
There is still a glimmer of hope.
Oh my gosh. We were just on two very different wavelengths today. Gentlemen, are there any other content creators that we've left off the table?
I don't know if there's any off the top of
I
head
covered
that
my
haven't-
top ones.
Yeah.
Joe Silock, the Bond enthusiast.
And he's
Joe-
relatively new.
Yes. Well, he's not new to
No.
to our world.
Yeah.
No.
But,
But putting
his
it out
Instagram
there.
is very
Yeah.
new.
Yes.
He's an
Bond enthusiast.
excellent photographer.
Yes.
So seeing his photos of places like Piz Gloria or places like Nassau, he's very proficient at photography.
If you suffer from FOMO, which I know I do,
Joe goes to everything.
he's a good friend to have because he is extremely well traveled. He goes to all the
Everything.
events, so he doesn't miss much. So if you want to catch up on certain things, he does incredible
and
work.
he's the guy to officially document it because he takes really good photos.
I'll also throw out too, and I think YouTube is probably the main place to watch him, at least at his best, is Roland Hume,
Yes.
the
Oh, yeah.
author.
Absolutely.
He not only talks about books, but he also talks about Bond and Bond moments and a lot of very interesting things. And he's got what I call snackable moments. Like his videos are no longer than 15 minutes long. So it's if you need this, like it's the middle of the day, you're taking a lunch break, you're eating your Subway sandwich, and you just want to listen to something or watch something quick. He's just a really nice, great guy, and he's just very intelligent, and he's got that accent. That damn accent.
And he's local too.
He is loco.
I
Oh, local. So you said,
Can you imagine
he's
that?
loco, essay. He is local.
you local.
He's a great guy. Gentlemen, anybody else that we should be reporting?
I think we named them all.
All right.
I'm
And if
sure
not,
as soon as
I'm
we finish,
sure there'll be a
I'll-
part two.
Yeah, we'll get
And if not, they'll tell us.
Yeah,
They'll be like, dude,
comment below with your favorite Bond channels.
what are you doing? I thought you were... All right. But gentlemen, thank you so much. Listen, if this doesn't add to your listening, your watching, your digesting pleasure, I don't know what will. You've heard the opinions of three people. Please list below in the comments your favorite podcasts, Instagram, and YouTubers. Yes, even Facebook and Twitter. Please list them below. We'll read them all. And Kyle, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Pleasure to have you back. Joe,
Sure.
thank you for coming.
Thank you. Always a pleasure.
We've made up his guest room again, as usual. And of course, this has been David Zaritsky for the Bond Experience. We'll see you all real soon. Take care. Thanks for watching this episode. If you want to be up on the latest from the Bond experience, just click on this subscribe and subscribe to our channel. You're going to get all the latest and greatest information, plus some exclusive content. And by the way, speaking of content, here's something especially for you, just because we know you. Talk to you soon.